the remaining Canaanites. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, "Who of us is to go up first to fight against the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah shall go up. I have given the land into their hands." The men of Judah then said to the Simonites, "Your fellow Israelites, come up with us into the territory allotted to us to fight against the Canaanites, as we in turn will go with you unto yours." So the Simonites went with them, and when Judah attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there that they found the Adoni-Bezek who fought against him and put to rout the Canaanites and Perizzites. Adoni-Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. When Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off have picked up scraps under my table. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem also and took it. They put the city to the sword and set it on fire. After that, Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country, in the Negev, and the western foothills. They advanced against the Canaanites living in Hebron, formerly called Kiriath Arba, and defeated the Shishai, Ahiman, and Telamai. From there they advanced against the people living in Debir, formerly called Kiriath Sephor. And Caleb said, "I will give my daughter Ashka in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath Sephor." Ananthel, son of Kenza, Caleb's younger brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter Ashka to him in marriage. One day she came to Othniel and urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off of her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What can I do for you?" She replied, "Do me a special favor, since you have given me land in the Negev. Give me also springs of water." So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. The descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, went up from the city of palms with the people of Judah to live among the inhabitants of the desert of Judah in the Negev near Arad. Then the men of Judah went with the Simonites, their fellow Israelites, and attacked the Canaanites living in Zephath, and they totally destroyed the city. Therefore it was called Hormah. Judah then took Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each city with its own territory. The Lord was with the men of Judah. They took possession of the hill country, and they were unable to drive the people from the plains because they had chariots fitted with iron. As Moses had promised, Hebron was given to Caleb, who drove from it the 3 sons of Anak. The Benjamites, however, did not drive out the Jebusites, who were living in Jerusalem to this day. The Jebusites lived there with the Benjamites. Now the tribes of Joseph attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. When they sent men to spy out Bethel, formerly called Luz, the spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, "Show us how to get into the city, and we will see that you are treated well." So he showed them, and they put the city to the sword, but spared the man and his whole family. And then he went to the land of the Hittites, where he built a city and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. But Manasseh did not drive out the people of Bethshan, or Tanakh, or Dor, or Ibleam, or Megiddo. and their surrounding settlements, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that land. When Israel became strong, they pressed, and the Canaanites were forced labor, but they never drove them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, but the Canaanites continued to live there among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the Canaanites living in Kitron and Natola, so that those Canaanites lived among them. But Zebulun did subject them to forced labor. Nor did Asher drive out those living in Akko, or Sidon, or Halab, or Akazeb, or Helabah, or Akaphed, or Rehob. The Asherites living among the Canaanites inhabited the land because they did not drive them out. Neither did Naphtali drive out those living in the Beth Shemesh or Beth Antha, but the Naphtalites too lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, and those living in Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath both forced labor for them. The Amorites confined the Danites to the hill country, not allowing them to come down into the plain, and the Amorites were determined also to hold out there on Mount Horez. Ejban and Shem Elabam but where the power of the tribes of Joseph increased, they too were pressed into forced labor. The boundary of the Amorites was from the Scorpion Pass to the Selah and beyond. The angel of the Lord at Bochum. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochum and said, I brought you up out of Egypt and led you into the land I swore to give to your ancestors. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars. You have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? And I have also said, I will not drive them out before you. They will become traps for you, and their gods will become snares to you. When the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud, and they called that place Bochum, and they offered sacrifices to the Lord. Disobedience and defeat. After Joshua had dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to its own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, and those who had great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath Heres in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. After the whole generation had been gathered to the ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the people around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served Baal and Ashtorites. In his anger against Israel, the Lord gave them into the hands of raiders who plundered them. He sold them into the hands of the enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as he swore to them. They were in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of these raiders, yet they would not listen to their judges, but prostituted themselves to other gods and worshipped them. They quickly turned from the ways of their ancestors who had been obedient to the Lord. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies, as long as the judge lived, for the Lord resented relented because of their groaning under those who oppressed them and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people returned to their ways, even more corrupt than those of their ancestors. Following other gods, serving and worshiping, they refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and said, because this nation has violated the covenant I adorned for their ancestors, has not listened to me, I no longer drive before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they keep the way of the Lord and walk in as their ancestors did. The Lord had allowed those nations to remain. He did not drive them out at once, but giving them into the hands of Joshua. These are the nations the Lord left to test all those Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars in Canaan. He did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites, who had not had a previous battle experience. The 5 rulers of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, Sidonians, the Hivites living in Lebanon mountains, from Mount Baal Hermon to Lebo Hamath. They were left to test the Israelites to see whether they would obey the Lord's command, which was given their ancestors through Moses. The Israelites lived among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites. They took their daughters in marriage, and they gave their own daughters to their sons and served their gods. Othniel. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served Baals and Asherahs. The anger of the Lord burned against Israel, so that he sold them into the hands of the Cush Rishad Antum, king of Aram Naharaim, to whom the Israelites were subject for 8 years. But when they cried out to the Lord, he raised up them for them a deliverer, Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, who saved them. The Spirit of the Lord came on him when he went to become Israel's judge, and he went to war. The Lord gave Cushnan-Rishathaim, king of Aram, into the hands of Othniel, who overpowered him. So the land had peace for 40 years, until Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. Ehud. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eye of the Lord. And because they did this evil, the Lord gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel, getting the Amorites and the Amalekites to join him. Eglon came and attacked Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. The Israelites were subject to Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years. Again, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he Ehud, a left-handed man, son of Gera, the Benjamite. The Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Eglon had made a double-edged sword about a cubit long, which he strapped on his right thigh under his clothing. He presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was a very large, fat man. When Eglon had presented the tribute, he sent on their way those who had carried it. But on reaching the stone images near Gilgal, he himself went back to Eglon and said, Your Majesty, I have a secret message for you. The king said to his attendants, Leave us, and they all left. Ehud then approached him, and while he was sitting alone in the upper room of his palace, said, I have a message from God for you. As the king rose from his seat, Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. Even the handle sank after, and his bowels discharged. Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fat closed in over it. Then Ehud went out to the porch, shut the doors of the upper room behind him, and locked them. After he had gone, the servants came and found the doors of the upper room locked, and they said, "He must be relieving himself in the inner room of the palace." And they waited to the point of embarrassment. But when he did not open the doors of the room, they took a key and unlocked them. And there they saw their lord fallen to the floor, dead. While they waited, Ehud got away. He passed by the stone images and escaped to Sirah. Where he arrived there, he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down with him from the hills, with him, leading them. "Follow me," he ordered, "for the Lord has given Moab, your enemy, into your hands." So they followed him down and took possession of the fords of the Jordan that led to Moab. Moab. They allowed no one to cross over. At that time, they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all vigorous and strong. Not one escaped. That day, Moab was made subject to Israel, and the land had peace for 80 years. Shamgar. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with the ox goad. He too saved Israel. Deborah. Again the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Now that Ehud was dead, so the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in the Hazor. Sisera, the commander of his army, was based at Harosheth Hagoyim, because he had 900 chariots fitted with iron and had cruelly opposed the Israelites for 20 years. They cried to the Lord for help. Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her to have their disputes decided. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from whom Kadesh and Naphtali, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go, take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead them up to the Mount Tabor. They will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops, to the Kishon River, and give him into your hands." Barak said to her, "If you go with me, I will go, but if you don't go with me, I won't go." "Certainly I will go with you," said Deborah, "but because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak and Kadesh, and there Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 men went under his command. Deborah also went with him. Now Heber, the Kenite, had left the other Kenites and the descendants of Horeb, Moses' brother-in-law, and pitched his tent by the great tree in Zahananiim near Kadesh. When they told the Sisera that the Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera summoned from Harogosheth Hagoyim to the Kishon River all his men and his 900 chariots fitted with iron. There Deborah said to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" So Barak went down Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. At Barak's advance, the Lord routed Sisera and all of his chariots, and the army by the sword. And Sisera went down from his chariot, and fled on foot. Barak pursued the chariots and army as far as Harosheth, Hagogoyim, and all of Sisera's troops fell by the sword. Not a man was left. Sisera, meanwhile, fled on foot at the tent of Jael and the wife of Heber and the Canaanite, because there was an alliance between Jabin, king of Hazor, and the family of Heber the Kenite. Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come, my lord, come right in. Don't be afraid." So he entered her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. "I am thirsty," he said. "Please give me some water." She opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him up. Standing in the doorway of the tent, he told her, "If someone comes by and asks you if anyone is there, say no." But Jael, Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg and a hammer and went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. She drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. Just then Barak came by in pursuit of Sisera, and Jael went out to meet him. "Come on," she said, "I will show you the man you're looking for." So he went in with her, and there lay Sisera with the tent peg through his temple, dead. On that day, God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, before the Israelites, and the hand of the Israelites pressed harder and harder against Jabin, king of Canaan, until they destroyed him. The Song of Deborah. On that day, Deborah and Barak, son of Abinoam, sang this song. When the princes of Israel take the lead, when the people willingly offer themselves, praise the Lord. Hear this, you kings. Listen, you rulers. I, even I, will sing to the Lord. I will praise the Lord, the God of Israel, in song. When the Lord went out from Seir, you marched with the land of Edom, and the earth shook, and the heavens poured, and the clouds poured down water. The mountains quaked before the Lord, the one of Sinai, before the Lord and the God of Israel. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned. The travelers took to winding paths. Villagers in Israel would not fight. They held back until I, Deborah, arose, until I arose, a mother in Israel. God chose new leaders when war came to the city gates, but did not shield or spear was not a shield or a spear was seen among 40,000 Israel. What my heart is with Israel's princes, with the willing volunteers among the people. Praise the Lord. You who ride white donkeys, sitting on your saddle blankets as you walk along the road. Consider the voice of the singers at the watering places. They recite the victories of the Lord, the victories of his villagers in Israel. Then the people of the Lord went down to the city gates. Wake up, Deborah, wake up, wake up. Break out in song. Arise, Barak, take captive your captives, son of Abinoam. The remnant of the nobles came down. The people of the Lord came down to me against the mighty. Some came from Ephraim, whose roots were in the Amalek. Benjamin was with people who followed you. From Makar, captains came down. From Zebulun, those who bear the commander's staff. The princes of Ishkar were with Deborah. Yes, Ishkar was with Barak. Sat under his command into the valley in the districts of Reuben. There was much searching of heart. Why did you stay among the sheep pens? Why did you stay among the sheep pens to hear the whistling of the flocks? The districts of Reuben, there was much searching of heart. Gilead stayed behind the Jordan. And Dan, why did he linger by the ships? Asher remained on the coast and stayed in his coves. The people of Zebulun risked their very lives. So did Naphtali. and the terraced fields. Kings came, they fought. The kings of Canaan fought at Tanakh by the waters of Megiddo. They took no plunder or silver. From the heavens the stars fought. From their courses they fought against Sisera. The river Kizron swept them away. The age-old river, the river of Kizron. March on, O my soul, be strong. Then the thundered horses' hooves, galloping, 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 go his mighty steeds. Curse Mizora, said the angel of the Lord. Curse his people bitterly, because they did not come to help the Lord against the mighty. Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Heber, the Canaanite, most blessed of tent-dwelling women. He asked for water, and she gave him milk. In a bowl fit for nobles, she brought him curdled milk. Her hand reached for the tent peg, her right hand for the workman's hammer, and she struck Sisera and crushed his head. She shattered and pierced his temple. At her feet he sank. He fell there. He lay at her feet. She sank. He fell. And he sank where he fell, dead. Through the window peered Sisera's mother. Behind the lattice she cried out, "Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why is the clatter of his chariots delayed?" The wisest of her ladies answered her, "Indeed," she keeps saying to herself, "are they not finding and dividing the spoils? A woman or two for each man? Colorful garments as plunder for Sisera, colorful garments embroidered, highly embroidered garments for my neck. All of this as plunder? So may all your enemies perish, Lord, but may all who love you like the sun, when it rises in its strength." Then the land had peace for 40 years. Gideon. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for several years he gave them unto the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in the mountains, clefts, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped on the land and ruined the crops all the way to Gaza, and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep nor cattle nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock in their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors, drove them out before you, and gave you your land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live, but you have not listened to me." The angel of the Lord came down and sat under an oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joshua the Abiezrite, while whose son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all of this happened to us? Where are all of his wonders that the ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us to the land of the Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hands. Am I not sending you?" Pardon me, Lord, Gideon replied, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. The Lord answers, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. Gideon replied, if now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you. And the Lord says, I will wait until you return. Gideon went inside, prepared a young goat, and from an ephah of flour he made bread without yeast. Putting the meat in the basket and its broth in a pot, he brought them out and offered them to him under the oak. The angel of God said to him, take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth. And Gideon did so. And the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of a staff that was in his hand. Fire flared up from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face. But the Lord said to him, peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die. So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, the Lord is peace. To this day it stands in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. That same night the Lord said to him, take a second bull from your father's herd, one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherite pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on top of this height. Using the wood of the Asherite pole, you cut it down after the second bull. Offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him, but because he was afraid of his family and townspeople, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. In the morning, when the people of the town got up, there was Baal's altar demolished, with the Asherite pole beside it cut down, and a second bull sacrificed on a newly built altar. They asked each other, who did this? Then they carefully investigated and were told, Gideon, son of Joshua, did it. The people of the town demanded of Joshua, bring out your son, he must die because he has broken down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherite pole beside it. But Joshua replied to the hostile crowd around him, are you going to plead Baal's cause? Are you trying to save him? Whoever fights for him shall be put to death by morning. If Baal really is God, he can defend himself when someone breaks down his altar. So because Gideon broke down Baal's altar, they gave him the name Jerubbaal that day, saying, let Baal contend with him. Now all the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples joined forces and crossed over the Jordan and camped at the valley of Jeriel. Then the Spirit of the Lord came to Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, summoning the Abarites to follow him. He sent messengers throughout the Messiah, calling them to arms, and also to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, so that they too went out to meet them. Gideon said to God, if you will save Israel by my hands, you have promised, look, I will place a woolen fleece on the threshing floor, and if there is dew on the fleece, all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said. And that is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day, squeezed the fleece, wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God, do not be angry with me. Let me make one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece, but this time make the fleece dry and let the ground be covered with dew. That night God did so. Only the fleece was dry, all the ground was covered with dew. Gideon defeats the Midianites. Early in the morning, Jebubbaal, that is, Gideon, and all of his men camped at the springs of Harod. A camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Moreh. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian to the hands of Israel with or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, "There's still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If you say, 'This one shall go with you,' he shall go. But if I say, 'Stay,' this one shall not go with you, and he shall not go." So Gideon took the men down to the water, and there the Lord told him, "Separate those who lap the water with their tongues, as a dog laps, from those who kneel down to drink." 300 of them men drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, "The 300 men that lap I will save. I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home." So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept 300, who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. Now the camp of the Midian lay below him in the valley. During the night the Lord said to Gideon, "Get up, go down to the camp, because I am going to give it to you into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servants, Purah, and listen to what they are saying. Afterwards you will be encouraged to attack the camp." So he and Purah, his servant, went down to the outpost of the camp. The Midianites, Amalecites, and others, eastern people, had settled in the valley thick as locusts. Their camels could no more be counted than the sand on the beach. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling a friend his dream. "I had a dream," he was saying. "A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed." His friend responded, "This can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite. God had given the Midianites and the whole camp unto his hand." When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, "Get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them, with torches inside. "Watch me," he told them. "Follow the lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow their trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." Gideon and 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard. They blew their trumpets and broke the jars that were in their hands. The 3 companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow. They shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. The army fled to Bethshittah towards Zerah, as far as the border of Abel Meholah near Tabitha. The Israelites from Naphtali and Asher and all of Manasseh were called out. They pursued the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, Come down against the Midianites, seize the water of the Jordan ahead of them as far as Bethbara. And all of the men of Ephraim were called out, and they seized the water of the Jordan as far as Bethbara. And they captured two of the Midianite leaders, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. And they pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon, who was by the Jordan.